Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Ace, and you're watching another episode of Tuesday Night Mania. Tonight, we have the whole gang back together. We're super excited about this. It's going to be another great episode. Let me go ahead and introduce to you the gentleman we have with us tonight. Number one, I'll start over here. We'll go ahead and start out with Big B. Sorry, it's on the other side. All right. Big B, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Glad to be back on. Sorry we missed a few episodes. Just, stuff comes up, but glad to be back talking some wrestling.
All right. And then, of course, Mess Around Dave. He's back. How are you doing tonight, my man?
I'm good. I just got off work, so excited to be here talking some wrestling.
All right. And then, of course, Joe is back. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good tonight, guys. How's everyone else doing?
Oh, fantastic. And then, of course, Will. Will, you are back too. We are glad that you guys are safe from that hurricane that hit Florida. So, Will, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, tonight we have some great topics for you. So we'll start out with Joe. We always hit you up on this one. If you want to give us that little bit of the AEW recap.
AEW was they had like 3 shows last week, 2 of them back to back on a Friday night there, and overall it was a show. Nothing too major to it or anything like that. A lot of turmoil going on in the back, but nothing really exciting to speak of. So it's actually going to be a pretty quick AEW recap this week.
All right. Yeah, and Impact's going to be pretty quick. I wasn't going to really mention a lot about that. The only thing I was going to mention about Impact was how many people they're actually losing. It's interesting. I'm looking at this going, a lot of contracts are expiring at Impact. I'm like, so are they going to get more people or what? Because the success that they had going for a little while, it was starting to pick up steam, but now with them losing people, I'm not sure what they're going to end up doing now. It's that is going to definitely be a wait and see thing. So I don't really have a lot to say about the recap of Impact unless anybody else wants to add anything.
Well, 2 people they're definitely not going to get an Impact is Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. So, there for a while, people thought there was a possibility those guys could sign up at Impact, but clearly that's not happening.
Yeah, and I think once Braun had started his own promotion at that point, that kind of went out the window too. And so I was like, all right, well, we know he's not. And then once he came back, I'm like, perfect. He's back in WWE. Great. All right. So we can jump into our next topic, which is Extreme Rules. So, and Brandon, Big B, I'll say, put this specifically and said Will's thoughts on Riddle versus Seth outcome. And I know you had a lot to say about this.
For such a great event, like it was really a good show, from top to bottom. And of course, the ending was just awesome. But, those 2 guys in the main event, I'm not sure that should have been the main event on that card. I believe, Edge and Finn probably could have been the main event, as well as the women's title match between Bianca and Bayley could have been the main event. It just, for such a big build-up and such a big match and such a big, it's a cage match with a scaffolding and everything else, it felt to me like the finish was very rushed and very nonchalant. I felt like they could have done a whole lot more to really, it could have been a much better finish. And that's why, in the chat, I messaged, I said, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed with that because, first of all, I think Seth probably should have won. That guy's been doing jobs the whole year, and it's very hard to believe him as a credible contender for a title when he's not beating anybody he's in the ring with. And then second of all, just the ending of the match I thought was very lackluster, and it could have been done much differently. So it wasn't that it was a bad match. It wasn't that it was a bad idea. The fight pit match was a pretty good idea, but the ending to it was so lame, I should say, that that's where I felt like, it kind of let them down. And again, I don't think they should have ended it with that. I think they should have ended the night with Edge and Finn Balor, and then as soon as that was over, went right into the whole Bray thing.
Well, they were going back and forth from the report I read. They were going back and forth from deciding on the main event between it was going to either be Rollins and Riddle or Bianca and Bailey. They were going back and forth. They just couldn't decide which one they wanted to make as the main event.
I think Bianca Bailey could have been the main event.
Yeah, it was a good match. It was a good match. I think it would have been a great way to end. But I must say, there's been people out there who were talking about how this is probably, and jumping into Bray really quick, that this is probably one of the best returns that they've ever seen. The way it was set up and everything, that it was one of the greatest things they've ever seen. And I agree with that 100%. That was definitely a knock out of the park right there. So, Joe, I'll ask you what Will was just talking about with Seth and Riddle. Do you agree that this should have been the main event?
No, I don't believe it should have been the main event at all. I didn't like the whole setup on, like, they were trying to make it look like UFC, but at least with UFC you could see inside the cage. This whole thing of being able to see outside the cage there where the cameras were, it's like old school WWE type thing. It just didn't feel right. The whole match, for two guys that had so much hatred for one another, it started out super slow. There wasn't a lot of violence as you would expect for two guys that supposedly did not like one another. So I thought there should have been more of that. And as we've talked about in the past about where blood should came into play at, or is there too much blood? This is one of those matches where there should have been, because if you had that much heat with one another, somebody should have been physically hurt in there. Yeah, at least with a crimson mass, as we like to call it. But I didn't like the platform on top of there. I thought it took away from everything, and I just didn't feel right after all this build-up between these two guys to have that kind of match. It just was not what I was expecting. And I'm like, Will, I expect it's tough when you don't have a heavyweight championship or a world championship to be defending, because you're so accustomed to that. And to not have that or the tag team titles on the line, anything like that. So you should have, I think Bianca and Bailey should have been the one that should have been main eventing it with a ladder match.
All right, so Thomas Burnett saying the fight pit was a lot easier to segue into the Bray return. And it potentially, I mean, I see where he's coming from on that. And Robert Burdick is saying, "What's up, bro?" So welcome in the house, Robert. We hope you're having a good night. There was one thing really quick that I wanted to bring up that I just read. There was a report that probably sometime this month that WWE is talking about bringing back the European Championship. And so mess around. I'll start out with you since you haven't really said anything yet. What's your thoughts on if WWE actually brings back the European Championship?
I mean, I guess it's good the way it gives those lower tier guys a chance to get a title like the mid card guys. So I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Okay, Big B.
No. Let's build up the titles we have. Don't bring another title, and I know they've had it before, and it might be an easy build-up, like Mr. Al said, give it to the lower cards, but you already got the Intercontinental title, you got the U.S. title. Let's keep building those up to be back to where they were, the number 2 belts, We don't need these secondary belts anymore. Let's keep what we have. Let's build on them.
All right, Will.
Who cares? Honestly, I mean, I don't know that it's going to really do anything for anybody. It's kind of like, it's outdated. It needs to stay retired. It's kind of like that 24/7 title.
Mm-hmm.
It's just for entertainment, and it's not, doesn't mean anything. And I fear that if they brought that belt back, it would kind of ruin the legacy of the belt. When I think of the European title, I think of 97 between Shawn and Bulldog, and I think of later on with D'Lo Brown and X-Pac and some of the other guys that held it. The end of 97, Shawn lost it to Hunter, and Hunter had it for a little while, and that's what I think of with the European title. Nowadays, I can't even imagine what they would do with that. So I would say leave it retired is the best bet, in my opinion. One other thing, too, I noticed we kind of skipped right over Extreme Rules and went into this, but, was anybody else as disappointed with Ronda winning the women's title over Liv as I was? Because I was really disappointed with that.
Yeah, I was disappointed, but I think I know the reason why they did it. And I think the reason why they did it is because I think they felt like Liv's title run just wasn't connecting. Like she wasn't getting over with the fans, and I think that was like the true reason. And I could be wrong, but this is my feeling of why they did what they did. It just maybe because of her run wasn't as great as they wanted it to be. But
But
So who's going to
fault?
take it off Ronda?
huh?
What's that?
So now who's going to take it off Ronda?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that they're setting up for a Shayna versus Ronda match.
There's a rumor going around that it's supposed to be Becky going over to SmackDown because that's what was supposed to happen after Clash with the draft. But say WWE's disappointed in Liv's run, whose fault is that? That's WWE's fault for not booking her right, as we've talked about. She had a run like Rey Mysterio did as the world champion, getting beat by everybody. The underdog run, and everybody's like, "Oh, Rey's world title run was horrible." Well, yeah, because he was booked that way. Same thing with Liv. Liv's a great talent. She was just booked to be weak and get beat by everybody. That's on WWE. That's not on Liv.
So Thomas is saying I think it'll be Raquel taking it from Ronda. I mean, that could be another possibility because she is bigger, she is strong, so I could see that. And I know what you're saying, Joe, about that. It is WWE's fault. Well, let me clarify and say when Vince was there, it kind of was the way that Vince was kind of building it up. I think Triple H tried to make it look better, but it just wasn't working. And so I
think at some point,
huh?
at some point too, I think you got to put some sort of gold on the Judgment Day, and I think Rhea is definitely a contender for a women's title. And then at some point, you got to put some belts on the Judgment Day, or they're not going to be a believable storyline very long.
Yeah. Which now that I think you could really see them kind of starting to get gold at some point, only because now they have some true heel heat. I think that was their first thing, was that they were trying to get Judgment Day kind of over to get them that heat, and they're finally there. Like, they finally reached that part to where people actually are like, oh my gosh, I hate this group because of what they did. So they're at that point now. So you could, and Finn Balor might be the guy that you might see challenge for maybe not the undisputed Universal Championship or whatever, but you might see him challenge for the United States or the Intercontinental title or something like that. But that's how I see it going.
I kind of see a Survivor Series match building out of that whole feud. Now that Edge and Beth are both involved, I kind of see, how they could do, Finn and Rhea and Dominic and
Priest
together. against Beth and Edge, and then maybe Rey Mysterio and one other person in a Survivor Series match. I kind of see that kind of building up for Survivor Series, which Survivor Series is really late in the month this year. I think it's like November 25th.
Yep.
So it's really, really late, or 26, somewhere like that. Really late in November. And of course, you got the Saudi pay-per-view coming up November 5th, I think it is. So I'm not sure what all the card is looking like for that. But of course, I know Roman and Logan Paul. But and then, of course, now it looks like Brock and Lashley, which that should be a good one, too. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense for Brock to come out and attack him other than to set up that match. But other than that, it was a pretty good one. Definitely looking forward to the next couple pay-per-views because I'm hoping that Bray Wyatt gets in there with somebody.
Yeah, from what I read before I came on here, see he's supposed to be exclusively on SmackDown.
Yep.
And according to the reports, they have his first month or 2 months already set up of how they want his character to go. So I'm really curious who his first feud is going to be against. And when you think about like on the SmackDown side, I don't think that they'll immediately bring him out and put him against Roman. I don't think that they'll do that right off the bat. But maybe somebody like a Drew McIntyre or Karrion Kross or somebody like that.
Speaking of Karrion Kross, he had a great match at Extreme Rules as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great match with him.
In the strap match, it was actually good to see him win.
Yeah, it was.
No, it's good to see a lot of extreme type matches at Extreme Rules for one.
It was. So since we're talking about Extreme Rules, Big B, what was your match of the night at Extreme Rules?
Man, it's tough. I think they all were good. The kickoff with the 6-man tag, I think, was phenomenal. I think that might have been my match of the night, and then ending with the Bray Wyatt return, which I kind of thought maybe they would have teased it throughout the show here and there a little bit more, and then revealed him at the end. But I'm with Will and Joe. I think a different match could have been the main event. You know, the women's title match, or Finn and Edge should have been the finale, and then roll into Bray. But good card, good Extreme Rules match. But I have to give it to the 6-man tag. I think that was by far a good match.
All right, mess around. What was your match of the night?
My match tonight, I probably have to say the Finn Balor Edge match. That was really good. And then the women's title match, Susie Belair and Bailey match is good too. I'd put them both as matches tonight.
All right, Joe?
The latter match, Bianca and
Bailey.
And Bailey was what I thought was the best match of the night.
All right, Will?
Edge and Finn.
Now, let me ask you, because people are talking about the Edge and Finn match. Did everybody like the way that they ended the match?
The way they ended it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
it brought more to the storyline.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you were going to say too, Joe? Is that you felt like it brought in the storyline part of it that you wanted to see?
well, yeah, because you got Finn, who was almost on the verge of saying I quit, and then Edge, a guy that they built up to saying he's never said I quit. So what's it going to take for him to say I quit? Because Finn was trying to do everything he could, and Edge wasn't going to quit. Only other thing that's going to make Edge quit is family. So I thought that was a perfect way to do it, because it still made Edge come off as a tough guy, plus also sincere at the same time, and being a family guy. So it didn't hurt him at all. It actually elevated him even more superstar status than what he already is. Plus, it also helped evaluate, jump up Finn, and that whole entire Judgment Day group in general. I mean, Rhea was phenomenal at the end of that because now she's a made superstar, even more so, I should say.
So we do have a few comments here where Thomas Burnett saying it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving this year for Survivor Series. I believe that's what he's talking about.
Yep.
And then Robert saying fantastic to see Cross win. I love that with my gal Scarlett. She call in the hogs on that babe. Right? It was, but I do agree. I feel like the way that they ended that Edge and Finn Balor match was absolutely perfect. And it does keep him looking strong in the end of it. All right. So since we were talking a lot about Bray Wyatt, we can talk about his puppets and think about. There's been a lot of speculation about who the puppets were and who's going to be the Wyatt Six. There's been a lot of speculation about that. We have been talking about that. So, Will, who do you think is his puppets and who's going to be in the Wyatt Six?
I don't know about 6. I mean, I assume Braun and I assume Eric Rowan, who is now signed back to WWE. I assume those
Oh,
two.
yes?
I
Yeah.
assume Bo Dallas will be one of them too, but that puts them at 4. I don't know about 6. Maybe you get Alexa back as 1, and that's 5. And then I don't know. You know, I mean, I just assumed that it was going to go back to kind of the Wyatt family and not necessarily play out the puppets. I kind of had a feeling that if they were going to play the puppets out, that the puppets themselves would have came to life during the Extreme Rules entrance. So I don't know, but I definitely assume Braun and Eric Rowan for sure, and Bo Dallas for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Liv Morgan is Bo Dallas' spouse, so I mean, maybe she'll be the female in the group. Who knows?
Is she really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I knew they were kind of dating or hanging out.
Yeah.
I didn't know they actually got married. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been dating Bo Dallas for a while, and that's actually
Yeah.
what people have been talking about too, saying that Liv Morgan could be one that goes in the Wyatt Six.
And that may be why she dropped that title too.
And she was kind of laughing when she had a crazy smile on her face when she tapped
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's that character change that people are talking about. People are like, look, there's that character change coming from the way that she was smiling and everything when she passed out. And then backstage with the way she was acting back then, everyone's like, yep, there's going to be character change. So from what I've read about the speculation of like the puppets and everything, and I guess Grayson Waller came out and said that he was one of the puppets, and Joe Gacy said that he was one of the puppets. Now, I don't know if that's actually like truth to it, but according to reports, that's what Gacy and Grayson Waller were saying. Whether they're going to be in the Wyatt Six, I don't know, but I do feel like Gacy could be in the Wyatt Six, and Eric Rowan, and Strowman, and Bo Dallas, and Liv Morgan, and then of course you have Bray. But Joe, how do you feel about the puppets and who's going to be in the Wyatt Six?
I don't know. I think there could be more to it because why would you, with the puppets, and they started playing the Funhouse. So is it going to be like, are we going to get Bray as Bray plus still have that inner fiend to him too with that mask that he had on, So I'm wondering how all the puppets are playing into this overall. But I like the tribute that they did for Brody with Sister Abigail with her mask. Which was Brody's mask when he was with the Bludgeon Brothers there with Rowan. So a great tribute to that, and the blue light when they popped open the door there. Graylin, yeah, I heard where he said he was, and then when he was referencing talking about Apollo, you could see the lantern in the background. But I think again, it could be one of those things. Remember how TNA had the Aces and Eights, and we had all these different conclusions of who these guys were until they finally appeared. But Bo could be very well one of them. I think Liv, because she did talk about character change. As far as wrestling, I'm not sure though. I mean, it's just could be anybody.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see on that mess around.
I'm just glad that they're bringing back character type wrestlers. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of just the reality base.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're bringing back characters. You know. Sorry, go ahead, Mess Ryan.
No.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I like Bo Dallas. I think he could be one. Joe Gacy, because through the pig's sleeve you can see the tattoo. That's the same that Gacy has. And then Liv Morgan because of the smile she had at the end of the match. But I would like to see Alexa Bliss back in there. And Eric Rowan, another guy. Braun, I'd like to see Braun in there, but he's probably going to do his own thing. And I have no clue who the others could be.
So we have an interesting comment here, and I'll get to you in a minute, Big B. And I think Will might agree on this one because I know Will's not a big Drew McIntyre fan. So Robert's saying Thomas Burnett. I know that he's just very boring, like some crazy dude from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Drew at all.
What
So
about those belts that were next to Sister Abigail? Are those the new women's tag team championship belts? Did anybody catch that?
no, what those were when you were paying close attention. That's why people thought that the person underneath the mask could have been potentially Alexa because she was the Raw Women's Champ, SmackDown Women's Champ, and next to her was the Raw Women's title and the SmackDown Women's title. So people were speculating, going, yeah. So people were speculating, going, could that be Alexa? Because those belts are sitting right there. So that could have been a hint of somebody. All right. So now Big B, we'll get to you.
If it's the NXT rumors that they're going to bring the guys up like you guys announced, I don't think Bliss fits into that. I mean, she fits into being Sister Abigail, don't get me wrong, but I think it would be a better fit for Liv. But if we bring back Bo and Braun and Rowan, another guy would come back or something, then maybe bring Alexa in as Sister Abigail. But if they're going to go young NXT guys, Liv would be a better choice as Sister Abigail. But
honestly,
I can't wait to see a move play out though.
Big B, honestly, what else are they going to do with Bo Dallas? Because that whole Bo leave bullshit from years ago was
you're right.
awful.
He's coming back as the Fiend.
I gotta imagine he comes back. The only thing that he could really do and be successful is join, the Wyatt family. And I think they really dropped the ball on that years ago.
Yep.
Not putting him in there, and then of course he got released. Mm-hmm. But I think that had he got put in there years ago, and I'm talking way back, like 2014 WrestleMania 30 time. That's 8 years ago. If he had got put in there then, I think he still would be an active wrestler now in WWE instead of being at home for the past, 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, remember he was tag champs with Mr. Perfect's kid, Curtis Axel.
Yep.
And they were the B team. And remember how awful that was?
B team.
So I mean, I think, one bad character move with them, not putting him with the Wyatt family in the first place, really cost him a lot of his career. He could have already been a big deal.
Yep, I believe he's going to be the Fiend character if he comes back.
Maybe.
I like how you dropped that in there and said, I
believe. Right, that's cute, Brandon. That's cute.
So I can definitely tell that there's some people who did not like the believe character when he was there.
I loved it.
I mean, it was okay, but I mean,
believe.
Yeah.
Commonly referred to, and you guys can quote this: "Believe bullshit."
I thought it was funny. I got a kick out of it. I love the Believe character.
That Bo Lee character is meant for like bingo halls and VFWs, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Believe.
High school gymnasium, big dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think since he's coming back, I think that's why they brought him back, was to be in the Wyatt Six. I think that's why they did that. It
And
would
the
not
thing is,
shock.
and everybody thinks that he was the Fiend character in that WrestleMania match because Bray supposedly wasn't there. So
I don't know, but he could have been the Fiend dressed up like the Fiend at Extreme Rules.
yep.
He could have been. So Robert saying how it's not like he can realistically use it, and he's talking about the sword with Drew McIntyre. Robert and Thomas have been talking back and forth about the sword on the side there,
Wow.
and how Drew McIntyre has it and what he can do with the sword. But
I kind of wondered about that too, that whole sword thing. It's kind of like when Brutus in the late 80s used to come out with the shears, and he'd run around like with the shears. As a kid, I always thought, oh my gosh, what if he stabbed his opponent with his shears? You know what I mean? So, I mean, I get it. It's not like they can use it, but I was always expecting Brutus to be getting his ass whooped and run over to the corner and just stab the guy with the shears.
Yeah.
You got to remember, in the late 80s, I was just a kid. I was probably, 7, 8 years old, so I always expected that. I was like, man, one of these guys is really going to piss Brute Eye off, and he's going to give him a really bad day, Remember back in the late 80s, it was like 80, 87, 88, I think it was 88. Every time Brutus would beat an opponent, he would cut their hair.
Yeah.
So you talk about some
that
great
comment that Robert left. That's funny.
primetime wrestling back in the late 80s with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon, and then Wrestling Challenge back in the late 80s. Man,
Yep.
Those were some great times. Saturday Night Main Event in the late 80s. Great historical wrestling. So go ahead, Ace.
well, speaking of historical moments, that's what we were jumping to next. And your historical moment that you chose was Bad Blood event from 10/5 of 1997. It was the debut of my favorite wrestler of all time, Kane.
Yep. So Bad Blood 97, huge event in the history of wrestling. I think we've covered it in the past, but I'm going to cover it again just because it's October. Just hit the 25th year anniversary of Bad Blood 97. You talk about Shawn and Undertaker in the first Hell in the Cell. Huge match, huge event. There were so many incredible things that happened just in that match alone, not even counting the introduction of Kane. They always talk about how Foley got thrown off the cage and went to the tables and all that stuff, but Shawn actually did the pre-table cage fall because he wasn't all the way at the very top, but he was about 3/4 of the way up, and Undertaker knocked him off, and he went to the table first. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't realize that, but it actually happened to Shawn in the very first Hell in the Cell. There's some other great matches there too. Bret Hart, Bulldog versus Vader and the Patriot. Hell of a tag team match. Great tag team match. I never quite understood what happened with that because it was supposed to be a flag match, and it wasn't a flag match. It ended up being decided by pinfall, but overall great match. Another thing too, in the very beginning of that match, or at the very beginning of that pay-per-view, Vince McMahon came out and was behind the scenes and was telling everybody that they had found Brian Pillman dead in the hotel room. So that was another a big thing for that event. Just overall, tremendous match. But of course, everybody remembers Undertaker and Shawn in the Hell in the Cell, and that was the first ever one. And just when you thought Undertaker was going to win and get the world title shot for Survivor Series, because that was what was on the line in the Shawn versus Taker Hell in a Cell, here comes Kane. You get your first look at Kane, and he's huge, and nobody's ever seen him before. Nobody knew what to expect with him coming out, and The guy just looks incredible, looks like $1 million, and you would never know that just 8 months before, this guy had been Isaac Yankum or the Fake Diesel or any of these other character names. And looking at Kane in late '97, you would never picture him being the Fake Diesel. You'd never picture him being Isaac Yankum. You just thought, wow, this is incredible. And really, if you were really deep into wrestling at the time, you really kind of bought into the storyline that this was Undertaker's brother. And I mean, a lot of people may have known, but I don't think so. I think a lot of people really truly believe for a long, long time that Kane really was the Undertaker's brother. And you believe that he had these powers like the Undertaker did, and you really bought into the storyline. Great character, great storylines, great build up. And then, of course, the guy goes on to have a tremendous career. Always should have been world champion more than he was. Always should have been world champion longer than he was. He should have had many, many world championships. Of course, he didn't. He only ever had 2 world titles, unless you count the ECW title. But, tremendous career overall, tremendous event. Go back and watch it. 2 hours and 46 minutes is the whole show. There's not a bad spot in the whole show. I mean, there is some great, great stuff. And then, of course, it leads up to that 1997 Survivor Series, which is another great event, which comes right after that Hell in a Cell or Bad Blood '97. And that was one of the best Survivor Series overall cards they've ever done. So, huge historical moment. Go check it out. Bad Blood, October 5th, '97. It's in your house, Bad Blood. It's on Peacock, or you may have the VHS like I do, or we may have it on DVD or whatever. But I mean, really, really highly recommend it.
So Will, I was looking at the card. The reason why they changed that tag match into a pinning match or a submission match, all 4 of the guys were injured, so they didn't want to risk it.
Makes sense.
I think my biggest question though, because Kane has been my favorite of all time. I wonder why they did not give him more title runs
I do too.
than what they actually did.
I always wondered that, but a lot of people, especially when you talk to the wrestlers, they'll tell you, certain characters didn't need world titles to get over, and certain characters needed world titles to get over. So I think it maybe had something to do with that. Kane had a world championship within the first 7 months as coming to WWF, but he only had it for one day.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was just a tremendous, believable, badass character. And you really would have thought that he would have carried some gold for a lot longer. Of course, later on, he had some tag titles, he had some intercontinental titles, and ECW World Champion and different things like that. But as far as the main, WWE title or the World Heavyweight title, he only ever had those once each. And really, it's hard to believe. But I think it's because he didn't really need world titles to get over, but he definitely deserved many more world titles.
And Joe, did you have anything to add about Bad Blood?
No, Bad Blood was a tremendous pay per view. Like Will said, there was not a bad match on that card from top to bottom. As we just talked about Extreme Rules, the bad match on that pay per view was Ronda and Liv. We can all agree to that. That match was just a cluster from start to finish. And you look at Bad Blood, there wasn't. I mean, it started out hot, it ended hot, and Vince's line of going, or JR, no, that's Vince's line. I'm sorry. If that's got to be King, that's got to be King. I mean, that 25 years later, we still talk about that, and it's hard to believe. I just like yesterday we celebrated 25 years of DX, 25 years of Kane. I mean, it's just Bad Blood in general. Great story, and this is the start of many things to come. The Mr. McMahon character starts to come out next month, as we know, and the Brett screwed Brett, and just so many things at the height of this Attitude Era is starting to go up, and we're starting to see this. So if you start to follow. Like Will says, usually like in January you start to see everything follow that whole entire year. You'll start to see really where everybody starts to take steam, and the Attitude Era really starts to kick into full gear at this point.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
so Jason Joseph is saying, "My guy Willie." So he's saying hi to you. So Robert is also saying Kane should have at least been given the Royal Rumble win. I feel the same way. Like I've always felt that Kane deserved to win a Royal Rumble. The closest he ever got was when he was in the final two against Stone Cold. That was the closest he ever got, and I felt like they should have given that to Kane. I guess I'm just being biased because he's my favorite of all time, but.
Well, there was a lot of rumbles that he was in that he could have won, and they gave it to somebody that just didn't make any sense. You know, I mean, I like Sheamus, but even the year Sheamus won it didn't make any sense. I liked Alberto Del Rio, but the year he won it didn't make any sense. And then Austin didn't have to win 3 rumbles either. You know, so there definitely were some opportunities for Kane to have won a rumble at least.
Or he could have won a King of the Ring. Been King Kane. No, I'm kidding. Royal Rumble would definitely have been better, but
Yeah.
No,
his best championship run was when he cashed in that Money in the Bank on that night and beat the hell out of Ray, and then he had a great run there. I mean, look at it. He finally got a couple one-ups on the Undertaker at that point, buried him alive, and so that was probably one of my favorite Kane runs. Besides that, the action figure that they made where he was all tied up in chains and stuff like that. So.
Oh, you're talking about when he was doing his rivalry against Shane McMahon?
Well, that, and then his the championship run when he beat Ray. You know, that was his best championship run.
Yeah, he won Money in the Bank and then cashed in.
Yeah.
The same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on the same night, and trust me, I was super happy about that when he finally, and I believe that time, I think he held the title on that run for probably about 30, I want to say about 36 days, maybe. I think it was a little over a month, I do believe, is how long he carried it for. I could be wrong, but I thought it was.
No, he carried it longer because him and Undertaker fought in the Hell in a Cell that year, right? He didn't lose it until like TLC when he lost it to Mark Henry, because Big Show was in that match, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. They did do some silly stuff with him, though. You know, remember when they had Kane versus Kane?
Yeah.
Remember that picture, Kane versus Kane?
Robert, the Chavo Guerrero was the ECW when he won the ECW title, and he beat Chavo in just like a few seconds.
Will and I were there that night. It's WrestleMania 24.
So he did have that, but I guess I don't know if I really consider that a championship run. I guess you can, because
I didn't count that in his world titles. I mean,
don't talk to Mark Henry about that, man. He got in an argument with Bully Ray over that.
Yeah, but at the time, though, you know, when it was ECW mixed in with WWE and WCW guys, they had 3 world titles at the time, and like ECW was like, the title there was on like the lower half of the totem pole. That was one that didn't really count for much. So that's the only reason why I'm saying I don't know if I count that, because
I know what you're saying. That's what Bully Ray said too. And Mark Henry came on busted open and said, "Man, don't be talking about that," because he was ECW champion and stuff like that. He said it still meant something. We were working under the WWE, and we all cared, but Bully's thinking the same thing as we are. ECW was ECW. This ECW was, I called it the WECW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because it was under Vince's guidance. He was seeing dollar signs, which didn't turn out very good.
So speaking of the Royal Rumble, I'm really curious since Robert mentioned about Kane winning a Royal Rumble. I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts of somebody who should have won a Royal Rumble, but never actually won a Royal Rumble. And so, Big B, who do you think should have won a Royal Rumble but never actually won one?
Did Goldberg win one?
No.
I'm just no. Man, that's tough. I would have to go. I know you don't like Goldberg, Ace, but I don't want to go with Goldberg though.
Mute his
Let me
mic.
think about it.
Mute that guy's mic.
Let me think about it. Go to somebody else.
All right, mess around.
Randy Savage. I think he should have won one.
That's not a bad pick.
No, that's
You
a
know-
good one.
You know what's funny about Randy Savage though too is a lot of people, whether people agree with it or not, there's quite a few people who are saying that Randy Savage was actually a bigger star than Hulk Hogan was, and I'm like, I don't. That's a hard debate. That's hard.
That's a very tough debate, but in the late 80s, 88, 89, early 90, Savage was just as popular.
Yeah.
Especially before he turned heel going into WrestleMania 5, he was just popular. If you watch a lot of those old classic VHS tapes and stuff like that, even on Peacock, they have some of them on there that you can watch. And, they'll ask the fans in different places, like, who are you here to see? And it'll be like, 5 people there to see Savage, 5 people there to see Hogan. So
Mhm.
I think he was dead run split with Hogan there for a while, and that's why they took the belt off of Savage and put it back on Hogan.
Okay, well that could make sense then. So we have Tim who's saying it was baby ECW, and then Robert saying Mr. Perfect, and then Tim is saying Jericho. So Joe, who do you wish would or should have actually won a Royal Rumble anyway?
Well, as you guys are talking, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, 88, we didn't really count that as a Rumble because that was the beginning. 89, 90 was Hogan's. So I'm thinking, God, you have to start thinking like in 94, 95, and later Rumbles at that point because the ones that won them in the beginning deserved it or earned it, whatever, how you want to look at it. But
89 was Big John Studd.
was 89 John Studd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 90-91 was Hogan.
Okay. Oh, man.
He's stuck.
I'm stuck. And, a war. God dang, man. A warrior maybe at one point. But, I mean, God, I still I go with Big Show because he should have won that one because he actually technically won it. And then they gave it to The Rock. But realistically,
What about Rusev?
no. I still go. I got to go Kane, though. I really do. I'll go with that.
So Kev is saying Foley, and then Robert is saying, honestly, in a way, I feel bad. Ted DiBiase should have had that win over Stud.
I agree. I mean, Hacksaw Jim Duggan won the first one. I mean, that's
Oh! All right, so Will, who should have won a Royal Rumble that never won a Royal Rumble?
Razor Ramon.
Ooh,
That's a
Razor
good
Ramon.
one. I like
that
No.
is a good one.
A lot of times he wasn't even in the Rumbles because he was defending his Intercontinental title, but he definitely could have. 93 he was in the world title match against Brett, so he wasn't in the Rumble. 94 he had the Intercontinental title match with IRS. 95 Intercontinental title match with Jeff Jarrett. 96 Intercontinental title match with Goldust. So he never got the opportunity to jump in the Rumble. But I honestly think if he got the opportunity to get in the Rumble, there would have been an opportunity there to really push him and escalate his career. I'm a very, very strong believer in Razor should have had the WWF title at least once, and he should have had the WCW Big Gold at least once, even if it was real early before, his addiction started getting real bad. 97 sometime. Scott Hall could have had the WCW World Heavyweight title for even a short run, dropped it to anybody. There was a lot of opportunities there, and he'll go down in history as one of the greatest champions of all time to never hold a world title, and that's a real shame. That's an absolute real shame. Same thing with Piper, exact same thing with Piper, one of the absolute greatest of all time, but never had a world championship, and that's truly a shame. So
Yeah,
I'll go Razor Ramon.
if I remember right, though, I believe it was either you or Joe that stated the reason why Razor Ramon never had a title run is because he didn't want to have that pressure
Correct.
of being at the top.
Correct. Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. But I still think at some point there were a lot of opportunities there that they could have got a belt on him for a little while. 93, 94, late 93, 94, and 95, he was at the absolute highest of his, he was at his peak, and the fans absolutely loved the guy. And he could have very easily been a believable champion. Um, you know, I really think they missed out on that opportunity. There were a lot of tremendous opportunities, and I also think too, and this may sound off, but you know, if he had been given a world title at some point, even for a short run, I think you never get the formation of the NWO. I think he stays in WWF, and constantly goes after that title. And if you think about it too, he left in mid '96, goes off, creates, possibly the greatest faction of all time with the NWO. But if he was still there in late '97, a year and a half later, Brett's gone. Sean's getting ready to be out injured for 4 years, which nobody knew at the time. Hunter's just starting to become a big deal. Foley's really kind of in there, in the title picture, but not really a huge deal. Rock's still kind of coming up. Austin's still kind of coming up. I think you could have seen Razor Ramon in WWF, especially late '97, beginning of Attitude Era, multi-time world champion. You had Owen there, but they didn't put the belt on Owen for whatever reason. Sean goes out 3 months, 4 months later after the Montreal screw job. So there was a lot of opportunities still there. However, of course, if Razor stayed, I don't think you would have seen the development of a lot of guys like Rock. I don't think you would have seen the Austin development the way it happened and all that stuff. But I think there was tremendous opportunity for Razor had he stayed. It just would have taken a little while. But then you would have never seen the formation of the NWO without Scott Hall.
So Robert is saying IRS should have won in 1994.
He's a big IRS fan.
Oh, okay.
Technically, IRS did win the Intercontinental title at Royal Rumble '94, but then a referee came in and reversed the decision. But technically, IRS did win the Intercontinental title. That was one bad thing about Royal Rumbles with Razor, is he didn't have very much luck. He won in '94 because the referee reversed the decision, or came in and restarted the match is what happened. But in '93 he lost to Brett. 95 he lost to Jarrett. 96 he lost to Goldust, and then he was gone to WCW after that. But he never really had a winning record at Royal Rumble. So
he had his kryptonite was the Royal Rumble.
yeah.
All right. So we're actually almost at that point now to where we're almost at that hour mark. So Big B, what final thoughts you have for us?
It's always good to come on, talk wrestling. Thanks for everybody that watched, commented. I know Will say it again, but anybody wants to be part of the show, just reach out. We definitely want to interact with our fans and keep checking out Coast to Coast because we got a lot of things coming up.
All right, mess around.
I couldn't help but when you guys were talking about Bad Blood, Taylor Swift song popped into my head, the Bad Blood song. Now I can't get it out.
That's fun. All right, Joe, your final thoughts.
Holy shit, man! Thanks, mess around. Yeah, we've been off a couple weeks, guys, and we appreciate everybody for sticking around with us, man. We've had so many crazy things going on. People, stupid weather bugs for a lot of us, and stupid weather in general for us. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting on here with you guys. I mean, it's like my therapy. You know, I don't have to pay for it. I get to I get to talk about it, enjoy it, and I feel better about myself afterwards. But I enjoy hanging out with you guys and just reminiscing about childhood as we get older, man. This is one of the things that we get to look back on and think about our childhood. For a lot of us in here, this is our childhood, man. You know, and to remember it, like when they said DX last night, 25 years. I'm like, holy cow, 25 years.
Yeah, 25
I
years.
remember 25 years ago what I was doing. So, um, again, always thank you guys. Thank you, Will. Crispy B, I'm gonna get him this time a little bit there behind the
The
scenes.
working man, Crispy B.
Exactly. Other than that, guys, I enjoyed it.
All right. Will, your final thoughts.
So, we talked about, bad blood and all that stuff, guys. Even if you only get the opportunity to go back and check out one match, go back and watch that Hell in a Cell with Taker and Shawn. A lot of the stuff that is so hyped up and so talked about with Foley and Undertaker. Shawn and Undertaker had already done it in the first ever Hell in a Cell. Another thing that's really cool about that Hell in a Cell, and this isn't a spoiler for anybody because this happened 25 years ago, but it ended with the proper use of blood, where Shawn's laying in the middle of the ring, he's victorious, but as he's laying in the middle of the ring, he's literally laying in a puddle of blood around his face.
Weirdo.
So it ends, when it ends, it makes so much sense, and highly recommend it. Go back and check it out. Huge thank you to everybody checking us out tonight. Glad to be back. It's been a long couple weeks. Got back on my live sales tonight too, and I was really happy about that, and really appreciate everybody. So, again, thank you all to everybody. Huge shout out to Crispy Bacon behind the scenes, making it all happen. And hope to see you guys next Tuesday night. Thank you, everybody.
Definitely. Thank you everybody for watching. Just like everybody said, give a huge shout out to Crispy behind the scene. Thank you to all of our viewers. We definitely couldn't do this without you. It's been another fun night. It's great to be back. We do apologize that we haven't been here the last couple weeks. And I mean, I was miserable the last couple weeks. I'm going to tell you what, I was freaking miserable. I did 0 shows whatsoever, but I'm feeling a lot better now. And I'm back up and going. So, all right, with that, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next Tuesday for another episode of Tuesday Night Mania. Have a great night.